There we go. Beautiful. The event is starting. All right, everybody. It seems we're live again. Very good. All right. The beautiful YouTube screen. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the 6th episode of our live coding sessions. We're building a trivia game, enclosure and closure script. And today we are actually going to use the database that we've been creating. Let's move some stuff out of the way. As always, you can find all the information about these sessions and the things that we discuss on my website, buildfunthings.com. I actually, in case you are wondering how to set up your development environment, I actually wrote a quite lengthy piece and also a half-hour video on setting up Emacs for closure development. So in case you're wondering how to set up your basic Emacs or a development environment, in this case, go through it. It has all the things you need. It has links to packages, explanations on why you need certain things, etc. It's very extensive. I think it covers everything to get to a running solution. It's very good for starters. And there's also a video that has me explain everything that you need to get into. So having said that, let's take a look at our package. First thing, I was just reading this article about reflections of an old programmer. By industry standard, I'm an old fart as well. And you should actually read the article. Gives some really good advice if you're starting out. The advice that I will give you and the author of this article as well is to focus on how you do things, understand how systems work, and not only focus on how a certain thing works. Like and he talks about GWT, which was a very upcoming GUI web toolkit from Google, and then it is no longer that popular, and you invest a lot of time and you end up having a lot of wasted knowledge. So try to figure out how things work, and that is exactly what we're doing here. We're using Closure and Close script to actually understand how to build an application, how to make something work. Last session, we ended up with having a database connection to our Heroku. Let me see if I can just log in real quick. Please not be logged out, because I have two-factor. Yeah, it's beautiful. We created a Heroku app, which is free. You can use it. You can experience the cloud development way of doing things. And we created database migrations to set up our schema. If we look at the PG SQL, PG admin view, to set up our schema to a certain point. If you've followed along, you will note that there's an extra table here, puzzle migrations. That is because I decided to add the data to the database, because that's a very boring task, and I got a little bit carried away with it, which is an engineer's trade, I guess. So if we look at the migration, there is a puzzle migrations up, which only has an ID and a date. And what does it do? What I did was to enhance our migrations to actually read puzzle packs. Why would you actually do that, you would say? Basically what I did, I created a puzzle definition file, which is a basically EDN file. It holds closure structures, and it has sets of questions, and that way I figured that when I add more questions, I just add a new set to the question list, and then with the migrations it will automatically update. that turned out to be a little bit more contrived than necessary, I think. So what happens now, if we look at the migrations list, and am I in live coding mode, right. Increase the font size, sorry about that, I keep forgetting this. So let's also enable the hide show mode, there we go. There. So when we already had this migrate, so it starts migrating the schema. And now I also do a migrate puzzles, and I use a spec for the pool, which is what we already did. And migrate puzzles will read the puzzle packs EDN and then process each line, each entity in that list with process set. And process set will go over the questions in that set and create a puzzle. And it's actually I'm thinking about enhancing the question thing to actually also include puzzles, but we'll get to that at a later stage. And then I just use the JDBC API to execute statements on the database to insert the questions, link the answers, and answer also adds the answer. So it adds the answer or retrieves the ID. And so it works up to actually having a insert into puzzle migrations, which has the ID of the data pack that is in there. So if we look at where is the window? If we look at the puzzle migrations and we do a view data, view all rows, it will have two rows, right? And I migrate those the 4th. Currently it is the 7th, so 3 days ago. The code is in the repository. So what I also did, and I was kind of stupid, so I will explain it. It's a very good learning point. I added it to the database on Heroku, and I failed miserably the first time, because if you remember in our migrations we already had an insert to see if the insert actually worked, and the Heroku database, it is a database that is already in some form of production. I actually tossed it away and create a new one because, well, nobody is using my application. But in the real world, you want to have an online migration so that your customers do not feel anything of your maintenance. So what I failed to do, and what I should have done, was in the migrations resource, I should have actually fixed the data before going into adding my actual puzzles, because the thing that we added was not very an actual question really. So as a migration step, I now also have the deletion of the question answer, deletion of answer, and deletion of question. I could also use truncate table here, which I do later, which I do right here, truncate table. And so what you can think about when creating a system, doing the migration, it will actually go from one step to another, applying all the SQL files that are not applied yet. So when you do a new feature to a production or a staging or production environment, you should always make sure that that feature is an isolated set of actions, so that when you go from the current state, that is production or staging, to the new state. Oh, doorbell, 1 moment please. Uh-oh. Hallo. Nee, dankjewel. Jullie komen hier zo vaak. Dat is toch alleen maar positief. Ja, het is heel gezellig. Heel gezellig. Ja. Het is toch een vraag van de kwaliteit samenspel. Ja, dat weet ik. En dan kun je vragen waarom komen ze zo vaak aan de deur? Ja, waarom luisteren ze niet als ik zeg kom niet meer? Maar dat is de antwoord. Ja. Dus ik heb het al een paar keer gezegd. Ik vind het heel leuk wat jullie doen, maar ik heb er geen interesse in. Hey, dankjewel. Dag. All right, that was interesting. Jehovah's Witnesses. And we have a Jehovah's Witnesses church just around the corner. So they're frequent visitors. Even if you're not into that type thing, they will come at any given time. So on Friday we have a lot of doorbells going off. So where were we? I have my coffee now. Yeah. All right, so we have some data. And with some, I mean I added more puzzles. So if we look at the questions, I found a list of very obscure movie references. So that will be quite interesting. So we now have 18 to 34, so that's 16 questions, I think, which is better than the small set that we had. Here you see that due to my working in my local database and the deletion of entries, the counters is not starting at 80 at 1 at the moment. So that's something we need to take care of, which is a really nice edge case. So what we want to do now is to actually implement a PostgreSQL component that actually talks to the database and gets our questions and basically implements our DB protocol, right? DB protocol, get a random question, and is this answer correct? So let's do that. We have a in-memory database in memory database. I will also open this CLM open command log buffer. Ugh. Let's see. That's very good. And then do the. Why are you not going away? CLM. Oh, that's very interesting. Why is this window not closing? There we go. Let's create a REPL down here, and in that REPL we'll have the CLM open command log buffer as well, and then we should see, right, so now you see the commands again, which is very good. In-memory database, that's where we were, right, this is our in-memory database. It had the DB protocol, DB actions, get random question and correct answer, as well as the lifecycle. So we'll do the same thing for the PostgreSQL, and our system will make sure that we have a connection pool associated with our component. And will also depend on migration, so that we have we know that our component won't start and becomes available before the migration is done. So let's create a PostgreSQL store, maybe. Why not DB? Dot closure. Yes, that's fine. It does not like the dashes, so it will replace them with underscores in the file name, which is fine. So we do a def record PostgreSQL DB. Why not? And one thing we know it will have the connection pool associated with it, and migrations. Migrations we do not need to add, I think, if I remember correctly. So, and we'll implement the component lifecycle. Increment steps. No, I forgot the key binding. No, it starts components. I always forget this key binding. So there's the, I think it was add stops, right? Yeah, add stops. Oh, I did something horribly wrong. Component. and every record should always return the component. We will already have a connection to the database itself, so the only thing that this needs to do is to provide the queries over the database connection, so there's no creating of connections or anything. So the component itself, it is quite easy. And then we need to do the DB protocol. Yeah, this is a really nice feature of Cider. If it finds the namespace that you are providing before the slash as a part of your class path, really, it will automatically include it as a requirement. So it will take the fully qualified namespace and then give it the name that is the exact specific namespace for it. So it should have something like db action, right? And we can add the thing here. So this is the component, or not this really. And the correct answer was question ID. I wish it would actually take the naming here. Let's see if we did that correct. Question ID, answer ID. See, now I have the name. I think I like this better, really. So how do we do this? How do we talk to this database, right? That's the question. And I already gave it away by saying we're going to hug the database. We're going to use hugsql. I never used it myself, so it will be quite interesting. It seems to be a successor to the YSQL library. It does the same thing, but slightly different. So first thing first is to add the library, and we'll do the layerware hugsql. com.layerware hugsql. There's some more 0.4.7, right? There we go. All right, so it's added, and it has support for quite a lot of databases. It basically uses the JDBC layer, so it will support many databases. And the writer of the library is a big fan of The Princess Bride, which is an awesome movie. I will not be afraid to admit. And now what we need to do, what hugsql does, it takes a definition of SQL statements in a file called .sql, which you read in, and then it will turn each individual statement using the metadata that we provide into functions available within that namespace. So that sounds a little bit complicated, but what it should do is that if we go to resources and we say queries SQL, and then we should be able to say we already have data in our databases, so we can say select star from question where ID equals ID, and which will take some metadata. It says name question by ID, and it will be a query. It will return a one row, and it will have some documentation saying retrieve a question by its ID. Its ID, right? This doesn't seem too terribly complicated. If you've ever written SQL statements, this is just purely what you would do. So if we take this query and we run pg, I keep minimizing the screen, right? So if we can we just create a new one, query untitled, right? There we go. If we can say this, select star from question where ID is 18, it should say, well, terminate abruptly, blah, blah, blah. that's the thing you get when you keep things open for a very long time. Stuff will break. So it says when we run this SQL statement for that ID, stream is lagging. Oh, that's horrible. Maybe Martin, it's streaming on 1080p. Perhaps you can lower the resolution. See what the YouTube says about it. YouTube. Stream state is okay. It's saying that it's streaming at about 2000 kilobits per second. So it should be a little bit better, but maybe the connection is a little bit lagging. Is it really bad, Martin? Yeah. Let's see what happens. All right. Let's assume that it will fix itself because that's the internet, right? So the number 18 is actually the ID. Okay, didn't look like it was mine. Now it's okay. Let's see if YouTube agrees with that. YouTube says everything is good. So it seems to be on my end. So, all right. So the amount of kilobits that I can send to YouTube was limited somewhere. It's the internet. Stuff will break, right? Retrieving the question from database, if we have an ID 18, then this statement should actually return one row, which is exactly what we tell it here. So we say, hey, that's horrible. We will call this function question by ID. There is this special operand, which is a colon question mark, which here in the documentation it is quite far down from the usefulness. I don't understand why people write all this stuff at the end of the documentation instead of doing it. Right, here we go. So basically there is a SQL file convention which says you provide a name for a function or a private function, add some documentation, and it has a command, which is the command run on underlying stuff. And the command can be a query and execute with a colon exclamation mark, returning an ID, inserting and returning an ID, which is all very well, and it's far down the documentation. So it becomes a little bit cryptic, but once you have this understanding of what the question mark means, it's a query and it will return a single row, which we see here, a single row, or we can say it has many, or returns the number of rows affected and pass through the unadulterated result. So yeah, so if we have this, now we should actually have this available here once we load it, of course. So let's add a com layerware. It's probably layerware hugsql. Just hugsql. What would it be? What would it be? What would it be? Now we scroll back to where our conventions start. So hugsql.core. Right. Why don't you expand them? Hugsql.core. Hugsql. And so if we do hugsql, there we go. It has many forms, but what we need is the devdb functions. So that's this one. And then we will give it access to something that is on our class path. And if you remember, the /resources, where we put all our files basically, is part of the class path. So if we do queries.sql, then it should read that. Called it queries, right? called query SQL, right? Resources. Didn't do it. Resources. Nah, didn't find that. All right, so maybe it just finds it, just returns 0 or nil. So that means that we should have a method here, really, that is question by ID. Question by ID. So, all right, so the evaluation of def DB funds is quite useless. It returns nil, so there's no knowledge of success, really. So let's assume that that's fine. And then question by ID takes one argument, of course. Takes one argument, right? Calls back, blah, blah. And we told it it would do, we should actually pass a database, I would think. Let's see, database, right? Let's see, I would expect that it will require some form of database to do stuff, because this would not work. Parameter ID is not found. So if we look at, we have some reference code in the migrations, I believe. Migrations on the bottom, we have this, we tried it for, yeah, there we go, to test out the rollbacks and stuff like that. So if we do a dev pool for now, right, and the pool is a bad name, we'll just go P. Right, P will be a connection to a database, so we have a parameter ID not found, so it probably needs something that says ID 18 then. Right, there we go. So we have this question which is generated when this hugsql statement is evaluated. It takes the queries.sql, it will build a function called question by ID, which has an argument which is the database, and a hash map of all the keys that we use here. So in our that means that we will need to use a closure again to get the database from within the DB record into the functions itself. So we need to take care of that. So we have this beautiful automatically generated database statement. And now the question becomes, how do we get a random number from the PostgreSQL database that actually refers to a valid record, right? Would that be a function for that? PostgreSQL get random record from database. The internet is such a beautiful thing. Quick random row selection in Morin. Offset, select my ID from my table, offset floor random, limit n. The n is the number of rows in my table. You need to first do a select count star to figure it out, and you need to floor it, which is quite interesting. Consider the table of 2 rows, blah blah. All right, so we already have some very interesting things. So we need, in our case, we already removed some rows from the database. So what we have is a number that does not start at 1 and a maximum number. One thing that we can do in the database component is to have some form of caching, really. The DB component itself, it is stateful. Things like the pool, we can add stuff to the component and it will survive. So instead of doing nothing with the startup, we can probably set the range from which we can select questions. It sounds like a bad idea for now, but let's keep this for now. All right. So what we need then is to find the minimum number, the lowest ID and the max ID. And for argument's sake, we'll just assume that everything is contiguous from there. So queries name get min ID, min question ID. It's a result, and we'll have one entry. The documentation gets the lowest ID from the question table. No, min ID from question. Wonder if that works. I did close it once. There we go. So that's 18. And as a counter to that, we will have a maximum question ID. Highest. And then there we go. That should be that. 34. And if we grab this one, it sounds very interesting. Name get random question. It's a result we limit it to 1, and the documentation will be grab a random question from database. So select ID, comma text from question offset floor random n, and that would be n would be the max. So this would be max, and then because we can start at a non-zero number, we need to actually make sure that we're within that range. So that would be the minimum value plus something that is randomly generated. Where maximum number is lessened with this one, right? So we get 18 plus a value that is random, but together will never be higher than 34. I think that would be right. Let's give this a try. I'm just winging it here as well, so let's see. So we have this, and the minimum, we know this is 18, maximum is 34, and this is 18. There must be a much easier way to do this. That does not seem right. Let's remove this offset and say 1. It's 19. Select, see what values it brings. 18, 18, 18, 28, 26, 29. Oh, but did you see what happened? Did you see what happened? The, when you use the offset and having a random number, let's say select count star, from question. It will actually say there's 17 rows here, right? So the offset random times 17 it actually ensures that the offset actually ensures that it does not start at 1, it starts at the first or the lowest active ID in the serial. So we only need the number of rows, so we can get remove this. And I wonder if we can just say, would it allow count star from question subqueries? Would that work? Seems fine to me. All right. So we can get rid of all that. And this, we'll call this the first of iteration of our beautiful algorithm, because it sounds terribly inefficient, but who knows? It's good to start with something and then improve it later than to try to make the most perfect solution that is possible. All right, so we have a question, but a question needs answers. So let's get question answers, and it will be a query, but there will be many rows, right? Generally there's 4 at the moment. So doc select the answers to the given question. And that would be something like ID, text, correct, I believe. Answer, columns, ID, text. Yeah. So, this is interesting. It allows us to fix a problem that we have in our application. When we do a call to the backend, we grab the question and its answers, but in that request you can see the correctness of an answer. So if we want to cheat, we just grab all the requests in the development console and we can just answer it every question correctly. So let's delegate the truth checking fully to the backend. So the front end will no longer receive the truthness of a question, which means that we need to change our schema and our in-memory database as well, to actually have 2 forms of answer, one with a question with correctness and the other not. Does need them? No, we can just remove the correct variable from the answer definition in the schema. So if we look at the Western API web server, the web server has, yeah, here we go. So this schema, this answer has an ID, an answer which is now named text, and correct, which is a bool. And we'll remove that, and then there's no the front end will have no knowledge of the truth of a question. So that will clean it up nicely. Answer, yeah, and we need to go through question answer, of course. So we need to do a join, inner join question answer on question dash ID underscore ID. Question ID equals question ID. Let's be full about it. And answer ID equals answer a dot id. All right. So if you're new to SQL, this might be quite mind-bending, really. So we want to retrieve the answers associated with the question. And if you remember, we created a link table between a question and an answer. So we need to join those two to based on the ID of the question to grab the actual answer data. So given question ID 18, we need to know the answers associated with that question. And if you're very observant, you can see that we actually could do this in one go and then parse it in our front end as well. So now it tells us to the question 18, these answers are possible answers. And if we would add the a.id, let's be clear, qa.correct. Yeah, I should have done that there, right? Then we can see 18 executes. Now we can see that the answer to question 18 is actually $297,000 because that's the truth of it, the matter. So, and if we want to be really efficient, we can also say, maybe we should just do that right away. Question Q, inner join answer A, inner join this one, and then the question ID that. So, and that should give us 4 rows or an error. That can be also the case. Why is this the inner join is probably not good, because then we need to say this, go here, put that there, and then say question ID. We want to link the question answer. We want to limit that to the question, the answers relating to just that question, and then we want to limit the answer data. Bad editor. On ID of answer being a.id being qa.answer ID. All right, so what will that be? So that will be a q.id, the ID of the question, and the text of the question, the ID of the answer, and the text of the answer. Inner join as perhaps you meant to reference the column and oh yeah, very useful, thank you. Right. As you see, something is still quite off at the moment because we, yeah, all right, we're getting every single row, and this one database is not the same as the other database, so every database has a different interpretation of a SQL statement, while most adhere to the SQL standard. There's small nuances. So we put the ID here, and I'm thinking that what happens is that this returns every single row, then this matches 18, but actually it matches everything because the result set here is still the highest, so this should be much more better. Right. So what we do now is we select the question ID and the text, the answer ID and the text from the table question, which we limit to only the question with the ID 18. And then we join it to question answer. We say, well, given all the questions and answers, we want to know the answers just pertaining to question ID 18. And then for that, we want to join the other table answer to grab the needed text from there. So now when we return, we get a map of rows which will have duplicate entries for the question 18 the moon, 18 the moon, 18 the moon, and then have the answer everywhere. But it prevents us from having it helps us to not have to do another SQL query to grab the answers, which in efficiency terms is, I guess, better. But it's a trade-off between how much data do you transfer versus how many queries do you do. And if it's a really popular game, you could also, for instance, choose to implement caching, right? And that caching we can just add as a component, and then have that act as a layer between the API and the database. So it gives us a lot of flexibility. And we can try different things without having to do a lot of work. So now we save this file. So if we go back to the Postgres DB, all right, we execute this, we get absolutely no response. So if it's right, we still have P, right? Yeah, P is a pool. We have question by ID, but if we can get random question for over a connection which is defined as P for now I did some terrible things together. I think I lost my train of thought. So now what we did was to actually grab the entire definition of 18, but what we were working on was to get a random number, right? So from question, right, and then we can just combine that with this one. Oh, that's beautiful. Let's see. So this will create a random thingy. So let's see what this does. It should give us a random question with its answers. We should remove the limit 1 because limit 1 will limit the result set to just one record, and now we just want to maybe yeah, this is horrible. I think this is not valid. No. All right, so we'll just do a two-step program. It's quite interesting because you can do a lot with SQL, but it will break your mind. So let's rename this to get random question ID. And the random question ID is retrieved by just grabbing this, and then we don't need the text here, right? So this is our select a random row magic offset. I like to indent the SQL nicely because else you will lose your oversight. So let's say get question data. It is a result set and it has many results. Look, get the question and answers by ID. Right. So we do this. We run this again. Then we can say get random question ID. The previous get random question is still within the namespace because it's not cleaned up. So it should just give us a number or a hash. It gives us a hash map. ID is 28. ID is 0. ID is 31, 24, 26. So there seems to be a case where it returns 0. So we need to make sure that that works. Maybe it runs out of connections or something. Alright, maybe it was a fluke or something. Let's see what happens. So if we do this, if we would thread P, I'm curious if this works right. There we go, and we add it to this. P, oh no, that's horrible. That doesn't work. So we should just do this. So yeah, so given this data structure, a hash map of ID with a row identifier for the question, we can feed that result set into get random question, and we should get a random question with a lot of answers, right? Because that's quite interesting, because now you see that ID, we can do a inspection of this. Can we do a CIDR inspect here? So it's returning 1, which is quite interesting, because I expected to get a list of answers, right? There you go. So given this 34, we would have expected to be presented with 34. Unless something else is wrong. 4 answers, and what we get is here. Well, 34 again. It's not very random, but it just gives us 2 rows, which is not what I expected. Let's look at the documentation. Select is a very bad name here. It's somewhere below here, somewhere. The commands. The results. Many rows as a vector of hash map. Yeah, we want a vector of hash maps, that's fine. Oh! Yeah, we used the wrong function. Get question. Question. No. How did we call it? We called it get quest data. Question data. I was using the random function, so that did not work right. Question data. So now it should give us many things. All right, yeah. And so what we did was to create a query which has 2 ID columns, right? So we should alias the columns, quest ID, question ID, as question text. answer ID as answer text. And now it should have good column names. Right, that's beautiful. We'll take that and then add it here. And then when we execute it again, it should tell us yeah, okay. Yeah, so we renamed the column. Maybe we can just rename this one, keep this one to be, I'm adding it here. So we renamed the column, and so the ID, this one, no, that should work. It gets confused again, I think. Maybe. Would it actually say question ID? It gets confused, and I'm confused as well why this would not work. There we go. Beautiful. So apparently the PostgreSQL, when you alias a column, you need to refer to the alias within the where statement. So that's fine. So there's a lot of data. There's a cool feature in Cider that you can inspect the data. Let's move the Cider inspect here. So it will tell you question 28, the Earth is approximately how many miles from the sun. Answer ID, these are the answers to it. It has some answer text, the values. And that's it. So it has a list of entries, and now we need to take these and move it into a structure that is actually a question with a list of answers. And that is something that is very easily done by in beautiful Clojure. But what we can do now is say get random question. Bam, and we can use the pool here, pool, right? And now we just need to, if we take this statement, the P is, yeah, sorry, there we go. All right, it has a list of answers, so there's also a that's undefined. Cider eval last sexp and control CVW run CVW. Bam. So now we have the result from the database in a list that we can actually use. So if we would map over this, and we say just do we have log here? Log? No, we don't. But this is also very cool. I came across it recently. If you have a well-known namespace like log, Cider tries to be smart and say, well, maybe you meant Tau Enso Timber. I did, and let's add it. Right? Log info, this one, and we'll map over this. Let's go to the REPL. So, given this structure, we can iterate over it. Why? Oh, yeah, of course. It came as a list, but the evaluation did not mark it as a list. So it prints out each answer here. And what did it do? I know that. Not interested in that. Right. So it maps out each answer. So it has the question itself and the answer text. So all we need to do is to write a function that first grabs the question part and then iterates over the list, grabs each answer and puts that into a vector, and then we're complete. So let's write that. Let's say Devin create a question, and what that will have, it will have the list from the database. We'll test the data from the database as a parameter. So let's say we do a let and do the question ID becomes the question ID from the data. The question text is the question. I can actually do a deconstruction here, I think. Of course I can do a deconstruction here. I need to remember keys. Question ID, question and question text as data. And then what it should do is say make those keys available from the data in your structure, right? So let's see first if it works, and then I'll explain it. Question ID, question text. As it is key, right? And then we can map the. Can remove the map here. Oh no. So there we go. And then we just create question. We evaluate it. No. Keys question. I'm doing something horribly wrong again, because it is a list, of course. So it is a list that needs to. Yeah. I do not like it. Because it's a list, we cannot deconstruct from that point. So we will just have data, and we need to. Let the first from data, and then we could deconstruct it, I guess. Let's experiment a little bit. Question ID from D. 24, right? That's fine. So I forget how this works. Deconstructs keys closure. Destructuring. Blah blah blah. Yeah. So that's question ID. Let's see what happens. Or something, a number? No. For speed, we'll just leave it at this for now. All right. Let's say QID becomes question ID. This will bug me for the rest of the day, and I will figure it out. But that's the nice thing of Clojure. When I make this change, it's only in this one area, and that's fine. It's can't think of it right now, but it should be very simple to do. QID, QText, QText, text. There we go. Right. And then given that, we can say answers becomes a map. Let's do create answer. Maybe we need to do some more stuff with it over the data itself. Definitely create answer data, and that will be a single entry, entity entry. That will be a single entry. So then all we need to do is return a map that says ID is answer ID entry, and text is answer text entry. Right. So then that would mean that if we log this answers, it should actually be a list, a lazy sequence, yes. So we need to apply or do all to a lazy sequence. Lazy sequences are great because you can have an infinite amount of data. But when you have a small set that you want to use, you need to do apply or do all in order to use them. Do a do all. Hello? Hello? Interesting. Very interesting. So what this should return is an ID, a QID, a text, QText, answers is a list of, well, we need to make a vector out of it, so maybe we could just do this, right? Yeah, so let's make a vector out of it, answers. See what this results into. E. It's a function creator. Very useful. E. There you go. Right. So if we look at the data structure that we need, what do we need? Let's see, web server. So what we need is a question which has an ID and a question, not text, and answer is an ID and answer, right? Answer, right? And this is not text, this is question. Right. So it has an ID and question, it has a list of vector of answers, which is a hash map with an ID and answer. If we look at web server, it's vector, ID, answer, and then we decided to remove this. And this is the point where I regret. Ah, yes, Martin for the win. See, that's bugging me, and it's already, Martin fixes it by using exactly the same thing that we already used. Keys, question ID, and question text. And then this becomes obsoleto. And this should be beautiful. Thank you, Martin. Question ID, question text. Beautiful. See, Gotta love closure. And all right, so now we have this beautiful structure, which is the result of a random question. We should also fix our in-memory database right away. No, we'll leave it for now, because then we get sidetracked. And my son has a play this afternoon, so I need to be on time for that. So for now, we will leave that. So we need to find if the answer is correct. So what can we do? We have question ID and the answer ID, which is basically the compound key of our question answer map, question answer link table. So all we need to do is to find the correct column of that and match it to true or false. So let's do that. Queries, name, get correctness, correct, get correctness, correct, answer question, correct. That is horrible. Get a correctness, is answer correct, question mark, and is a query and returns one column, and the document says retrieve the correctness of the answer to the question. And we'll do select correct from question answer. In some way my mind does not want to type the I in, right? Where question ID equals question ID and answer ID equals answer ID. All right, so let's see what happens. So let's grab this one again and say the P is for pool. Right, so let's answer question 29 with answer 111. Is answer correct for people? Question ID 29, answer ID 111. It should give us a map with correct. True. We did it. So let's see if it 12 false. Right. So that's beautiful, right? So that's that. Now the question becomes, what did our contract say for the API to say post, and it will have a map with the value correct, db post correct answer. So we can just say correct. We will give it the, so this will return true or false, and then that will move into our API. You can see there's already some discrepancies between what we thought we would do versus what we're doing now, especially with regards to naming. So there's a little bit of work to do there, but you should never fear refactoring, right? I'm actually thinking about next week either doing API authentication and adding friends and stuff, or doing a session on testing. So let me know what you want to do. Doesn't really matter either way. Both are necessary, and they will do some. We will do it in either sequence. So with this, we should actually have a fully functioning interaction with our database. Seems like so little code. Clojure is very compact with code, packs a big punch. So given this, we should be able to change our system to use trivia post. Do it again, right? Post SQL DB. Oh, we need to add the new, right? So we have this record, which is implementation of that, and then definitely new Postgres QLDB config options that we do not use, and then we have the map to PostgreSDB, and we'll add config options. Evaluate that, and then we should be able to have that. Right, so what should happen now, which I think should happen, is when we reload the application that we have here, when we do that in a REPL, right? Where? Over the rainbow. I should have tested this before we did something, right? Connection refused. I did not even start it yet, so that's interesting. There's no backend running yet. So what should happen is that when we reload the application will actually start the backend. It will connect to the PostgreSQL database for answers and for correctness. Our first question is always, how cool is Clojure script? It will fail miserably because ID 1234 or something is not part of the database. Then we could also see what happens with our code. And the next question should actually be retrieved using our getRandom question from the PostgreSQL component. And then the answer should be checked with a SQL query, which is quite interesting. First, what I want to change here is I see that the debug output is here, which is also the C3P0 debug output, which is annoying for now. But I found that if we set the logging level of the timber to info, it will actually just be kind of quiet, which is a good thing. So let's click start it, see what happens. No implementation found for class nil. What? Components. PostgreSQL There is a lifecycle here. Let's do go. Go is not here, yes, because we're in the other namespace in ns trivia.core. Is that how you do it? Go. All right. So our reload failed because there's nothing to reload, right? So let's first use something that we have to our disposal. It's the API docs, right? Remember, we have the API instrumented. So let's get a question. It's 2002, which is not right. So it's still using the in-memory database, and that is because I changed it. I probably did not evaluate it. So attempt 2, and it fails miserably. Oh boy. Let's see what happens. Oh, P is still somewhere. Yeah, right. All right, so it's totally messed up right now. But apparently I did not evaluate this record because the variable p is still used here, which is actually called pool, of course. Um, yeah, now it evaluates. Beautiful. Let's see if we can still reload the application. There's no reset. Yeah, so it got totally mixed up. So let's go to core. This is core for something else. Let's go to core. Hello, go away. Why is that still here? Let's go to core. Sounds like a broken record, right? Core, right. Let's evaluate this. This works. There's no stop because it stopped and it did not go. Let's go. Let's go, right. It failed. PostgreSQL. Let's see what the REPL said, right? Get connection failed. That's something new. I thought we fixed this already. Where did it fail? Where did it fail? Core, the middleware, API routes. I'm looking for something called Trivia web server. I think with the namespace mess up, it went kind of haywire. What I found, what happened on core, earlier in the last live coding session we had that it failed after every refresh. I found that it failed because the init, that's something what happened, because we re-evaluated it and the system is now nil, I think. It's a system map, it's something. What I found was that with every reload, the system was in a state where it was deconstructed basically, and so this one time created symbol for sys was having a state that was not usable anymore. So I moved it back to init to survive a reset, because a reset will stop, it will go to go will init and will start again. So it should have a fresh copy of the system every time it goes. So I'm quite interested why it did not do what it is supposed to do, right? The address is now already in use. I think that the compilation failure messed up the entire buffer. Really? Yeah, we're at a state that our REPL is no longer functioning, or our system is not really functioning. This thing here, it is working. It is failing miserably because the connection pool is now no longer in a usable state. So the only thing to do now is to close all the REPLs and start them again. Because now it's the wrong window. There we go. So let's start the REPLs. It happens every once in a while. There's nothing to do about it. In every larger project, if you have a Java project and you have an online session with your Tomcat instance, for instance, it will happen. You need to shut down everything and let it get back into a usable state. Or something else happen, and we're just trying to figure that out. I think it should be fine. Oh, did I? did I just do something horribly wrong? System. No. I thought maybe I missed the pool and the migrations, but we moved that over from the in-memory version. So that should be fine. So where's the REPL? And the other one, the close script one, that's working. So let's give it a go. See, there's something odd here. Oh, that's the hcon library, because we still have the horrible tau-ens log level thing. Alright, should be fine now. Let's see what it does. Now there is something else that we are doing wrong. So db spec trivia connection pool is missing a required parameter. So we are somewhere else in Badlands, and that is because I passed along the pool and not the spec itself. That's the reason why. So forget everything I said about having to reboot once in a while. The problem is simply this. And it's true that sometimes you just need to reboot, but right? To quote the IT crowd, have you tried turning off and on again? Yeah, I have no tests, I know this. I reloaded the application with a shortcut. Maybe I did not. No. Spec the pool. Is this correct? Is that correct? Oh, I forgot one. Spec. All right, let's see if my idea is solid. It is solid, and it says the map is not. It's not a map. What I get is a lazy sequence. So that is our get random question. So this thing is still returning a lazy sequence. So let's just assume that this is the solution. And that ID parameter not found. Beautiful. We're getting in all loads of nasty. So, which is quite good. Let's use a very useful feature, which is not going to work because I set the log level to info, so it will not trace. So now it tells us. I do not lie when I say that you can watch me fail miserably, right? It says parameter mismatch on the handler rep routers. Rep keywords, that's beautiful. The ID, this, that. Where's trivia? It's in the web server. Get random question. The result of this is not what we expect. So let's, for argument's sake, just do this. Let's R be this, and then we will return R as part of our method, but we will also log it on the info level because due to our log level setting, we cannot use the spy function. So let's just see what it returns, and it probably is something very silly. It returns number 22, yeah. So this is still a lazy sequence. I would thought the do all would actually convert it into Yeah, there we go, there we go, there we go. All right, so we push it into a vector. We can also, would it then still work? Into returns a new collection, sequence. Into sorted map. We just want the simple form of a list. That's fine. Oh, actually want a map, right? You know what we're forgetting? We've been doing all this, but we actually have this create question that actually creates a question from the data that we were supposed to grab. So we actually forgot to actually do this, create question. And this does exactly the thing that we told it to do. So we just forgot about it. So that's no biggie. So let's see if it actually still parameter data not found. But well, let's use something interesting that the closure library Cider has this debug functionality. So let's actually use it. Because why have a debugger if you never use it? All right, let's have a debugger that fixes magic problems. All right, now I'm wondering why did the debugger not kick in? But on the other hand, the problem is fixed. Which is a very good thing. And now let's say we have question 28 and we want to answer the question with 109. It will be false. This will be correct. So the question is 28 and the answer will be 109. Or 108. 107. False. 108. True. 109. This cannot be true, right? Question 28 cannot be answered by both 108 and 109. So there's that's interesting. Let's grab this part from it because we probably have the question. So we're saying question 28. Oh yeah, I will need to select it. Number 28, right? Select star from question answer where question ID equals 28. Oh, that's quite interesting. There's a fault in my import, I guess. C23. I need to select it. Sorry. 23 only has 3 answers. That's interesting. 27. 29. True, that's fine, that's fine. 30. All right, so there is, oddly enough, I chose the question that had false data. So let's look at them back. It's a question about the sun. Yeah, see, there's just a mistake here. All right. So for some reason we just picked that one out of the hat. But what we know is that the API call works. So that means that if we load this sucker up, there we go. This will fail because there is nothing to do, and this fails miserably with the error 500. We can play this along because we should be prepared for things like this. And the error 500 is because there is a nil value in the here. So the correct answer will either be this or nil. So it will be true, false, or nil. So we should take this and be very correct about it. Let answer be that. If nil answer, do false, and else do answer. Unmatched delimiter, that is something that we don't see very often. That one works. Oh yeah, that's horrible, Aaron. Correct. It's actually correct. There we go. That's that. Oh wait, I have. Oh, that's odd. That's very odd. Apparently my copy paste in Emacs failed, which is very unusual. That closes now. That's fine. This is something that normally does not happen, so quite interesting. All right. Answer cannot. No, because I called it correct. Because I'm a sucker for bad naming. There we go. Let's reload it. And now it should just give us false. But it is the That's interesting. I did not expect that. Log info correct. I think there's something finicky about the reloading part of the yeah, so for some reason it actually returns, it has the correct nil is true, so if true then false. So this should actually be a value of false, so there should always be data here which is either true or false. Right. Seriously, I cannot type. There we go. Huh. Oh, that's interesting. So oh, there we go. So now it took one reload extra, so there's probably something wrong with the definition of the system in the cycle. So now it says the correct is nil. So given this if statement, it will insert false. But this one is still saying that the boolean is not, the instance cannot be nil, because we're expecting a boolean, which is, we see that this one is working. So why is the web server then not doing it? And so let's take this part and then just say log info a. See, it's not loading it. Let's reload it again. And the web server now says, sure and fine, but this method is actually returning nil to me. That is very interesting. That is very interesting. Spy will not work, I think, because the log level is set to so if we say change style and so timber set level trace, we might regret this, but there we go. That pulled it. There we go. So yes, thank you very much. Oh yes, I'm a dork. That the reason why this does not work is because I am a dork. We moved this one already out of the way. So we were trying to call, hey, give me the correct key from true or false, which does not exist, right? So let's go ahead in our REPL and then change this back to info. I wonder how much time, how much programming time is actually wasted on things like this, right? Being just not very there at the moment or something. Not very aware of what you're doing, but at least it's easily fixed. So now it actually works. So let's load it. New game, false. That is what we expect. No, that didn't work. Let's we know 93. So what we see now is that we actually have questions coming from database, and if we look at oh, there's also a request field. That's interesting. Question. So for some reason it fails. I think it is maybe our random number generator is not working correctly. But what I want to show is that we now get a question and we no longer get the ID or the correctness of the answer. So we can no longer cheat. Yeah, so question. It works. We see a new answer. In the 1933 movie where Mae West spoke the line, "Come up and see me sometime," called she done him wrong? Who was her co-star? Cary Grant. All right. It's also very interesting. I saw a James West. John Wayne had a closing bracket behind his name, which is also not very good. All right. So I need to take a look at the parameter mismatch thing. But generally it works. We have hugsql defined. We have this queries .sql. It does a magic thing. It just creates database functions on the go. It goes to PostgreSQL. So the hugsql reads it, and within our record we are able to call the database and grab questions from it and submit answers. So let's wrap it up at that. It's been about hour and a half, hour 45 minutes. It's a nice chunk of work that we've done. So I will take a look at the exception. I'm quite confident it's something with a random number generation, so that should be fine. So next week, 10 a.m. Central European time on Friday, I will be back. I'm thinking for now to continue on the path of. I think it would be good to do some test code as well. So let's spend an hour and a half running some tests to make sure that everything works as it is intended. Because afterwards we want to add user accounts and that we can fight each other with a game of trivia. So I'm thinking that we'll need some more changes which are more structural. Our code base becomes bigger, so it would be a very wise thing to do a test iteration. So let's do that. If you like this video, press the thumbs up below. If you've not subscribed yet, press the subscribe button. At this moment we already have 61 subscribers, so that is insane. Very nice for a channel like this. So, but there's also room for more, so be sure to do it. As a side project, I will also be starting a Emacs productivity series, a small series to see how you do certain things within REPL's evaluation of code. So be sure to check that out as well. They will be bite-sized, so if you have like 5 minutes, you can watch them. So next week I'll be back. I hope you're back as well, and see you then. Now I'm going to try and shut down the stream in a YouTube requested manner, because normally I just press the big button and it stops. For now I will stop the stream. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.